So, welcome everyone. I appreciate you joining me today, and I'm so excited and grateful that you've taken the time to join us today. And I want to start just by acknowledging the incredible work and dedication you are all giving, and your colleagues and our frontline staff who are giving everything and then some to care for our communities, to protect our communities. So a big and heartfelt thank you to everybody on this webinar, and to all of your colleagues and families as well. Thank you to them as well. So we have a really great hour ahead of us, and I want to start just by acknowledging the various healthcare organizations we have really around the world joining us today. So I want to start with a welcome to Hamilton Health Sciences here in Ontario, Canada. We have a number of leaders from HHS joining us, and I have the pleasure of working with HHS on a regular basis, so welcome. We have individuals joining us from New York State. Welcome. I can only imagine the experiences you've had and continue to have. We have individuals from the NHS in the UK. I think it's like 9 o'clock, so thank you for joining us. And many other organizations across North America and other countries as well. So thank you for joining us. So we're going to jump right in, and I want to start by sharing a little bit about us. So my company K&Co is actually a family business that was started in the early 80s by my mother. And we've been helping teams and leaders in all types of industries, but in particular healthcare, to really tap the best of themselves, to achieve more with less struggle, by sharing very practical solutions and tools to help teams and leaders to tap into the best of themselves. We believe that life and work aren't meant to be a struggle, although it is right now. And so our whole purpose is helping teams and leaders to thrive more and struggle less. We believe work should be a challenge, but when teams function at their best, it's not a struggle. Okay? And we've, my mother who founded the business, we've published a number of books over the years. I have co-authored the book Improving Healthcare Team Performance, and that's based on many, many years of research that I conducted in really what makes healthcare team performance, healthcare teams work effectively. That book is required reading at a number of universities, including Royal Roads here in Canada as part of its Masters of Health Leadership program, a couple of universities in the US. And my most recent book, Winner Instinct, that's a non-healthcare specific book, but that's used as a handbook by leaders in companies like the Federal Reserve in Chicago. Okay, so quite a bit of experience and research in team and leadership effectiveness and those behaviors and practices that make the biggest difference. Now, this is the question, okay, that this and all of our work, this webinar and all of our work is founded on. This is the question that has been driving us for over 30 years, asking and answering this question over and over again, which is, what's the difference, right? What's the difference between teams that can achieve exceptional results with ease and those that struggle to keep up? And in 2004, 16 years ago, we began asking the question, hey, are healthcare teams different? Do healthcare teams need to focus on a different set of behaviors and practices given the complexity that they work in, given the culture and the kind of work that healthcare teams do, being high reliability organizations? And so in 2004, we had the opportunity to research that question when we were asked to develop a culture of safety assessment that's used in the Managing Obstetrical Risk program today, for those of you who have the Moral B program in your obstetrical departments. And it was through the development of that assessment that we developed a 1.5-year research initiative, and we asked the question, what does it take for exceptional healthcare teams to perform at their best and deliver the best care possible? So obviously healthcare teams are unique. And so this webinar is designed based on our understanding of what healthcare teams need to perform at their very best, okay, based on that research. So today you'll walk away with a few things. You'll learn how to maintain and improve your team's effectiveness, not just now, but beyond, right? Not just during the sprint, but also when things start to return back to normal. We may still be working remotely, right? This is disrupting the way we work forever, even in healthcare, especially in healthcare. You'll help your team to stay focused on the most important goals right now. What are the most important goals? What are the most important priorities? What are the practices we need to be demonstrating consistently? You'll learn how to clarify expectations and to establish new best practices. And of course, build cohesion and community in a healthier climate during a very isolating time and a time of great overwhelm for so many of our team members. Okay. So I want to pause for a minute here and just check in. I really would love to hear from you. We have a chat box, okay, a chat tool in Zoom. And I'd love for you to pop into chat. What are your top challenges right now, or biggest issues that you're facing leading your remote teams, leading your teams in your hospitals, in your healthcare organizations right now? Can you just pop that into chat and just share with me, you know, the kinds of things you're dealing with and would love solutions for? And then I'll share with you what I'm hearing from the leaders that I work with. Grab a pen. Staff well-being, thank you, Jeremy. Absolutely. Making sure they feel supported, absolutely. Coping and resilience. Perceived inequities, right? Some at work on site and others not. Staff morale and distress. Yes, loneliness. We've got employees who are living on their own, right? Feeling isolated. And also a lot of staff are feeling like they want to physically be there. They want to do more, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing those. And so, oh, we have a few more coming in. I'm hoping everybody can see all the chat. Yeah, productivity, right? Right? Difficulty with loss of face-to-face and nonverbal feedback. That is really challenging, especially if you're not using the video, the chats, right? Okay, so we're going to address those. Thank you for sharing that. So the leaders that I work with and reach out to have shared very similar challenges, right? This overwhelm of stress and anxiety and overwhelm of workload, right? And so some top concerns of leaders is, how do I support the well-being of my team members? The next one, and these aren't in order of priority, but collaboration, this sense of team and community. We're used to being able to just walk by somebody's desk or walk down the hall and grab someone and say, hey, I've got this idea, or I have this challenge, can you help me? Or how are you doing? We can have impromptu meetings, right? So that's been a challenge. Also, in particular in healthcare, the flexibility and adaptability, right? Being able to ensure that people can adapt quickly and change roles and focus on different priorities as the crisis evolves, as we get new learning about this pandemic and how it is evolving and impacting our communities, right? And so a colleague actually, shared today that just last week, right, the planning was for a surge that doesn't look like it's going to be happening in the same way as we expected, which is good news. And it throws our planning upside down, or it impacts them. So we have to switch gears really quickly. Recognition, as somebody had said, right? How do I ensure everyone feels fulfilled and valued, even though people are playing different roles? right? So one of my colleagues at a large financial institution here was saying, you know, she's got team members whose job is just to help keep the lights on versus other team members who are doing, you know, very significant big projects. And how do you maintain that balance of recognition and everybody feeling they're contributing? And then some other feedback I've recently had is more specific to task forces, right? In particular in healthcare, there are task force for everything, PPE task forces, redeployment task forces, you know, and many task forces that are cross-functional. And it's all shoulders to the wheel, all hands on deck. And when it can become, if not managed effectively, quite disjointed, and it might result in some territorial, well, that's not best for my program, or that's not best for my unit. And there can be difficulty making decisions and conflict arising if the task force isn't really connected and clear on what's the task force's purpose and how are we making decisions and what's our common goal that we need to stay focused on, as opposed to what's best for individual, you know, people. So those are some of the challenges being expressed to me. I'm just popping back into chat for a second. Okay. So what I want to share with you is a framework that's based on our research in healthcare team performance. Okay, and this is specific to healthcare teams. And in this webinar today, we're going to focus on two main elements, and we will dabble in some of the others as well. So I just want to pause here and touch on them. So going back to that question, that what does it take, right? What's the difference between exceptional healthcare teams and those that struggle to keep up? And what we know from our research and work with healthcare team, many teams, is that those teams that consistently perform well demonstrate a core set of practices that make up this framework. So exceptional healthcare teams have a healthy climate, which we're going to talk about today in the context of remote teams, right? That speaks to well-being, that speaks to psychological safety, feeling valued, and trust and respect. Okay, trust is huge right now. And feeling cared for and supported by our leaders is essential. Healthy climate is the foundation of a high performance team. We don't have a healthy climate, we cannot begin to improve any of the other 6 elements here. Cohesiveness, we're also going to be focusing on cohesiveness here. How do we create a united remote team that is feeling isolated, that is maybe members are being pulled in different directions, whether it's a OD team or a clinical team or a task force, multifunctional or professional task force, okay? So we're going to be focusing on cohesiveness. Climate and cohesiveness are the 2 most important elements to get right and strengthen in order for your healthcare remote team to perform well. The next element of a high-performing healthcare team, which we're not touching on today, but in your complementary tools that you're going to be getting at the end of this session. So at the end of this webinar, I'm sharing a link that you will get a bunch of tools to use with your team, okay? One of them gives you an overview of each of these 7 elements. Shared learning is one of those elements that through our research was identified as really important to healthcare teams. So this shared learning element isn't included in our corporate team framework. And this is about the ability to learn with and from one another in a way that there's no fear associated to it, right? I feel free, I'm able to ask questions, I'm able to talk about mistakes, right? Team members' contribution is all about engagement and being proactive and offering help and looking for solutions to move the team forward without just sitting back and waiting for somebody to ask you. Open communication, this is something we'll be looking at today as well, and it's interwoven into everything we do. In this healthcare framework though, it's all about communicating accurately, effectively, and in a timely manner. And again, like shared learning, having the ability to ask questions. And then, of course, change compatibility. That's all about being open and responsive and executing against change effectively, regardless of whether the team agrees with the change or not. This isn't about agreeing with a change and so we're going to do it well. This is about teams executing and being open to change, regardless of whether they agree with it or not. That's what drives high performance as well. And then shared leadership is the concept of all shoulders to the wheel. Do we own and are we accountable for the success of the team, the good and the bad and the ugly as well? So for today's purposes, we're focusing on healthy climate and cohesiveness, and open communication is woven all through it. And so that brings us to the 4 guiding principles that underpin what we're talking about today. Structure. Your remote team needs structure. Structure your meetings. Okay, we're going to talk about that a bit today too, right? Help your team members structure their day. How are we structuring our communication? So structure is essential, which we'll touch on today. Creating a sense of community, that must be top of mind as well for you as leaders. How are we going to stay connected so that we combat this feeling of loneliness and maintain a sense of team? Communication. Now is the time to over communicate. And I don't mean having a million meetings to address what could have been done in 2 meetings, right? We don't want to overwhelm people with unnecessary meetings. So we'll talk about what we mean by over communication and connecting as we go through this. And then finally, care and compassion. Okay, I just want to pause there. This is essential and to your team members. And care and compassion, meaning care and compassion for self and care and compassion for others. Okay? And I know in healthcare, the leaders that I work with, right, we are so focused on others, that we're service oriented. And oftentimes we don't take time to pause and care for ourselves because we're so focused on caring for other people. But as you know, you can't care for other people unless you're well as well, caring for yourself. Okay, so it's actually a selfless act. So let's start with cohesiveness, okay? So cohesiveness is one of the most important elements of a high-performing healthcare team, okay? Cohesiveness, and this is important in corporate teams, so there's alignment, but the behaviors that we measure specifically for cohesiveness in healthcare look slightly different than how we measure it in corporate. But I'm not going into that level of detail with you today. So cohesiveness is all about the degree to which your team members, again, remember, whether task forces or your teams that you lead, right, like your units or your departments, it's all about your team members being able to pull together in the same direction towards a common goal. Exceptional teams are fanatically focused on reaching as high as they can towards their goal. And in order to reach as high as they can towards their goals, they need to know exactly what it is they're reaching for and how to reach for it. So cohesiveness also requires team members being very clear on what their roles and responsibilities are, what the key priorities are, and the behaviors and practices that are most essential to their team's effectiveness. And each team will have a unique set of behaviors and practices based on their goals, based on their culture and what's working and what's not. So we're going to get into that. Okay? So I'm going to ask you 3 questions right now. I don't need to know the answer to these questions, but I would really like to know when you have the answer to these questions. So if you're so inclined, when you have the answer, type in, got it or have it or know it or whatever you want in the chat box so I can see how long it takes for you all to answer these questions, okay? So my first question to you, what does success look like for your team? Does success look different now, given the current situation? So I'm going to assume in healthcare, the main goals that you had a month ago for your team are different than the main goals you have today. Okay, oh, people are, got it. Awesome. Have it. Awesome. That's what we want. Now think about your task forces. Oh, Paul, you raised your hand. Thank you. You can also raise your hand. Think about the task forces that you're on. Do you know exactly what success looks like? Awesome. I'm seeing hands raised. Do you know what success looks like for your task force? Okay. What's the risk for those of you who aren't able, don't have it clear in your head yet? And it's okay if you don't. This is normal. When I ask this question, I often get deer in the headlights. Okay, I can't see your eyes, but it's okay if you don't. The first step is recognizing that there's a need here. And so what's the risk? What's the risk in not knowing clearly as the leader what success looks like right now? What you're working towards achieving? Anybody want to put something in chat? Okay. So obviously the risk is if you don't know what your team is working towards clearly, your team members don't. And things are changing rapidly. And the purpose of the team a month ago might be different now. Or it's gotten muddy as a task force. So many things are changing that we've lost sight of what we were brought together to do. And that creates territorialism, silos, conflict, lack of role clarity, and who's doing what. So we always need to come back to this. My next question for you, same rules apply. What are your team's top 3 priorities for achieving this success? And by priorities, I don't necessarily mean initiatives and tasks. By priorities, I mean, is team well-being a priority? Is quality a priority? Is speed a priority? Is innovation a priority? Is safety a priority? What are the top priorities that your team members need to be fanatically focused on and aligned to in order to manage the workload, in order to know where to put their attention, in order to manage their days? Okay, great, done. Richard is saying leading means understanding your team and the various components of your team. Love it. And the risks from Karen and Tracy and Frank, right? Organization fractures, fragmentation, mixed messages to staff, 100%. Absolutely. My next question is, are the roles and responsibilities for each team member clear, understood, and respected by all? People are being redeployed, right? We are on task forces with people we may not have worked with before, okay? Sometimes we have people going rogue, right? Not with any, negative intention, but people go rogue when we're not connected effectively to the common goal and we don't understand what's expected of us, right? And that's when the lanes get blurred and conflict can happen and people may feel that their toes are being stepped on or what have you, okay? So it is essential, especially in task forces right now, to get clear on who's doing what. And I don't mean just do a charter right at the beginning. We need to come back to this regularly because as things evolve, people are moving fast right now, okay? And people get ideas and they run with them. Great, we want to encourage that. And we also need to bring people along to understand, how am I contributing? This is my understanding of my role and how I'm going to contribute. This is my understanding of your role. How are we going to work through this together? Who else needs to be involved as well? What other roles are we missing? Okay. So I'm just going to keep checking in on the chats here. Okay. Great. So my final question to you, and again, I want to know when you've got it, which behaviors and practices, what are the behaviors and practices that are most important to your team's effectiveness right now during this crisis? Because the behaviors and practices that are most important right now that will enable your team remotely, or some of your team are on site and some of them aren't, will be different today than they were a month ago. So what are those behaviors and practices? You should know them without even thinking about them. Okay. I love the chats that are happening. I hope you're all in the chat and you can see what everybody is saying. Thank you. Civility, humanity, yes. Okay. Regular communication to prevent myths and fear, absolutely. Okay. So having an answer, being able to answer those questions quickly as a leader, and being able to connect, your team members need to be able to answer those questions. And this isn't just a test where, oh, I can rhyme off what success looks like, or I can rhyme off these behaviors. This is about being connected daily to them and holding each other accountable to them, to these behaviors, right? In a positive way. I don't mean in a punitive way. Okay? So here's one way, if you feel that there is more cohesion is needed, that these questions may not be answered consistently by everybody on your team, in particular your task forces right now, I suggest holding a team reset meeting, because it will only get worse. If there's confusion now, and you may not know if there's confusion, right? But if you're seeing some fragmentation, if you're seeing some conflict and some disagreement happening or miscommunication happening, now's the time to check in. And so I've been holding like what I call reset, refocus, and recharge meetings with some of the teams that I work with. And this whole purpose is to do a few things to build cohesion, okay? So the first purpose of this meeting is to acknowledge the current state, okay? Acknowledge the stress. I just even want to take a deep breath when I think of the current state that we're in. Everybody take a deep breath, okay? Acknowledge the current state and show appreciation for the team and the contributions and how far and how much has been accomplished already, okay? And acknowledge the challenges. And then bring your team together in this meeting to say, hey, let's just get clear on what we're working to do, or reconnect to our goal, because so much is happening so quickly. Let's reconnect to what we're here to achieve right through this crisis, as this task force, or as this team who is now, focused on responsibilities and tasks that we've never had to do before, right? So ask, what's our goal, do you think? Or go back to the original goal you set in your team charter and recommit to that. Is it the same, or has it shifted? Are we still aligned to that? Then identify or reconfirm your priorities. Re-clarify your roles and responsibilities, and clarify expectations around how should we be working together going forward, right? To be even better than we already are. What do we need to do? What do we need to clarify and do even better? Now's the time to be doing a reset. We've been operating together for a month now in this crisis, here in Canada at least, and I know in different parts of the world it's been different for those of you not in Canada. Or in Ontario specifically for the past month, and let's check in, okay? So I'm actually going to be, at the end of this, sharing with you, introducing you to our online course for this, where we go really deep, or I go really deep into how to build cohesiveness and give you a number of tools. One of the tools you get through the course is your guide to facilitate a really effective team reset meeting, okay? But you have what you need here too. This is what you want to achieve. And by clarifying expectations, I mean, get really clear on, go back to basics. How do we need to communicate going forward? because the way in which we've been communicating the past month may have been working or it may not have been working, or we may now need to shift how we're communicating given what's coming in the next month. So we need to continue checking back in. Is how we've been working or not? What do we need to shift? How do we need to make decisions together? Has it been working or not? Where do we need to shift? How are we going to best support each other? How do we need to maintain a sense of community? And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And as a leader, what do you need from me? Okay, now's the time, and we're going to talk about this in Healthy Climate, as a leader to be vulnerable. In the online course, I go deep in helping you identify if you're living in the realm of invincibility too much, or maybe in the realm of vulnerability too much, and how to achieve the balance, because it's difficult. Now's the time for both. And in particular, as leaders, we need to show vulnerability and be able to connect with our team members and ask, what do you need from me? How are you doing? How can I help? Right? What do I need to do differently to support you? Okay. And then a question around what's most important for us to keep top of mind. And that really leads into identifying those behaviors and practices that are most important for your team, given where your team is at, given the goals it has in front of them, and how they work together. So I want to introduce you to team agreements. And there's some of you on this webinar, I've had the pleasure of working with you. And so you know how obsessed I am with team agreements because they work so well. And so I'm really excited to share this with you. I call these, like, it's the most powerful tool in your toolkit. And team agreements are a small set of behaviors and practices that your team identifies, each of your individual teams identifies as the behaviors and practices that are most important to the team right now. Okay, it's not like a set of team rules. It's not, right, a list of 20 things. It's the team identifies specifically, given our personalities, given the work, given the fact that we're working remotely, here's what I need from the team. And everybody shares, here's what I think we need to do, or here's what I need in order to be my best self and work effectively, okay? So, and then you develop your team agreements together. So I'm gonna give you an example. And this is actually a non-healthcare example of a team that I helped develop just last week, but the practices are relevant. So you ask your team, in your reset meeting, in order to be the best possible team, or in order to work as effectively as we can as this task force for the foreseeable future, we need to what? And then capture what your team members say and come to agreement. This team couldn't come to agreement, couldn't reduce the list more than this. They started with, I don't know, 15, and this was as far as we could go down. Because they felt everything here was important. My recommendation to you is to keep it to 5, okay? So this is what they identified as needed, and I love this first one. We agree to keep meeting lengths to 50. If it's an hour meeting, we're gonna make it 50 minutes. If it's a half an hour meeting, we're gonna make it 25 minutes. To allow time for people to get up, walk around, take a bio break, grab a tea or a water, right? People are sitting in front of their laptops, some people, all day long, jumping from one Zoom meeting to the next. Allow and respect people's time and show that you care by reducing the team, giving people just a few minutes to breathe. Okay, so that's what they agreed to do. They also identified the need for them, okay, their meetings were going all over the place. And they realized that they would meet, but they weren't really sure what they wanted to achieve by the end of the meeting. So they agreed that for every meeting, they have a clear objective. Even if that objective is simply to get together to start to talk about and get clear on a specific issue, and the goal is to get clearer on an issue, right? But at least everybody knows what we're coming together to do, okay? They also identified the need to respect one another's preferences, how we work. Everybody works differently, especially at home. People have kids at home that they're trying to homeschool, and so may not be you know, able to meet at 8 or what have you, right? And also, there's a lot of really amazing focus on resilience right now, which I'm so grateful to see, and I want to give a shout out to HHS. Amazing work on resilience. And in this team, some people were saying, you know what, I understand the need for work-life balance, and it stresses me out more not to do my work. I want to get a certain amount done, and if I have to work at 10 or 11, I'm going to do that. And they were starting to get frustrated by people saying, you need to stop working at 7, right? So this was all about respecting each other's boundaries and trusting that people know what's good for themselves, and if they need support, they'll ask for support. And that was just for this particular team, okay? Be patient with each other, assume positive intent, wear the organization's hat and not the individual's hat. We are here to serve our patients. We have goals that are, you know, for the organization that best serve the patients. Let's focus on those and not what's best for me, okay? Or my specific area. Adapt quickly, stay focused on the right priorities, and respect each other's lanes, right? And we're empowered to do our area of work that we're experts in or have been asked to do. Let's respect those lanes. So that was for this team. Yours will look different, but the way they use these is they check in on them once a week. How are we doing? Do we have objectives every week in our meetings, right? Are we being patient? Is there anything that we need to recommit to and do better? Okay, so I want to get a sense from you, how are these landing? How is team agreements, if you can put in chat, how do these resonate for you? Is it something you think would help? Okay, just so you know, we've worked with thousands of teams, and teams that develop and use them, okay, developing them once and never using or referring to them again, it's not going to change behavior, okay, at all. They need to be used, all right? And by used, I mean share them, develop them with your team. This isn't you telling your team what they need to do, right? Develop them with your team. Thank you, Kara. These would be incredibly helpful. Thank you. Develop them with your team. Use them regularly, whether it's even just once a month. Check in on them and ask, how are we doing and what do we need to recommit to or do better? And celebrate what you're doing well. Let's take time to acknowledge that, okay? So the next piece of cohesiveness, okay, is scheduling regular team check-ins. Some teams are doing them every day, whether it's a quick 10-minute huddle or it's a longer 30-minute meeting, okay? And the purpose of this is so important, even if it's just to have some social time where you're not even talking about work. It's just an informal check-in, okay? This is how we build community. This is a way to build calm and focus and just to reconnect. It does not have to be daily. It's based on your team's needs, not what I think your team needs. I'm just sharing some best practices that you can adapt, okay? This allows you as the leader also to stay connected with how your team members are feeling, and for your team members to stay connected with how each other is feeling. And I'm going to show you how some teams are doing that now. And to stay connected to team goals, right? So has anything shifted since yesterday, right? Which they often do right now in healthcare. So I want to give you an example of what you can include in your daily check-ins. So some teams are starting with one-word check-ins, okay? And this is, you start just by having everybody share, you know, one word that reflects how they're feeling in that moment. This isn't about talking about why we're feeling that way or trying to solve people's problems. This is about just checking in so we know where people are at and people have the opportunity to express how they're feeling. So in a check-in, somebody could be feeling, I'm pumped, you know, I'm feeling like we can really make a difference right now, or I'm feeling really optimistic, Somebody else on the same check-in could say, I'm scared. I'm really worried. Somebody else could say, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, right? And it's just the opportunity to share where we're at. And then as the leader, you know, and if somebody's feeling overwhelmed, you can check in later that day and say, hey, how are you doing? Can I help? Or what do you need? Right? Or team members know to check in with one another. Okay? So in some teams, this is an optional check-in. Not everybody shares, but it's there for those people who do want to. Okay? Also a mindfulness practice, right? So even, and HHS has been great at this again. Sorry, I'm using HHS as an example because they're doing such a great job and there's so many leaders on, which is great. Mindfulness practice, even if it's as simple as 3 deep breaths together, right? We are running from one meeting to the next, or one crisis or one issue or one problem to the next. Taking time to ground ourselves in the present, right? So we can release the stress from the previous meeting and maybe chaos from the previous meeting and come back to a place of calm where we can set our intentions to be present and focused and do our best to serve the purpose of that meeting. Okay, so those are great ways to start your check-ins. Then these are some other ideas. What's working, right? What's really working well that we should continue to do? What's not working so well in our team that we should really address, or what's unclear? Okay, start having those kinds of conversations. This one I really love around what's the word on the street, right? We can usually have a sense of how other departments and other teams are doing, what's needed, what's working, what's not, where should we be adjusting, who should we be reaching out to support. But it's more difficult now. Our spidey senses, it's harder to get them out there to understand the needs of our community and our colleagues and partners in the hospitals. So asking team members, what are you hearing, right? Is there anything we should know that you're hearing that would be helpful for us to know? Reconnect to your team priorities, reconnect to your team agreements, and have what I call a happy hour. Share some good news, personal, what's great that's going on in your lives, what are you excited about, right? What good news, even if you maybe got out for a walk, short one, share that. So these are ways to build community and support well-being. Okay, now I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here around structuring your meetings. Okay, I'm sharing with you a complimentary tool called the Vital Agenda. In the online course that I'll be talking to you about, we do a very deep dive and you get a significant toolkit around how to lead effective meetings. But here you have the most important criteria. Okay, and you have your Vital Agenda, which I'm going to share with you at the end on how to structure your meetings. Always have a clear objective. Ensure everybody understands what we want to walk away with at the end of this meeting, okay? So that you actually achieve that. And oftentimes things go off. We go on tangents, people bring up issues that aren't directly related to why we're meeting now. So you can use, if you have a clear objective for your meeting, that's your meeting management tool. So when things go off track, which they will, okay, especially in task forces where it's new, we're not used to working together and we've got lots of different personalities and influencers, you can use your objective as a meeting management tool. If somebody goes off, takes the meeting off track, pause and say, and just ask a question. You know, I'm noticing we're spending some time talking about this item or this issue or this idea. Does this directly relate to our objective of ABC? If not, table it and say, we're going to table this for the next meeting because it seems like it's important, or what have you, or take it offline. We're going to take it offline. It's not for this meeting. And bring the discussion back on track. Okay? It's your responsibility as the chair of that task force or the meeting leader or the team leader to keep the team discussion on track. And you cannot keep it on track if you don't have a clear objective for your meeting. And there might be multiple objectives, and the vital agenda gives you the opportunity to create multiple objectives, but it's your job to keep the discussion on track, okay? Ensure that your agenda, okay, isn't full of 20 different items. A clear objective is going to help you determine what's most important to talk about and address or decide or solve at this meeting. A clear objective also ensures you know who you need to have at that meeting, okay? So, and ensure your agenda allows for time for discussion, for decision making, for idea generation, for problem solving, that it's not just simply talking at your group, okay? Okay. Also, the right agenda, which is you'll have an example of a really great one, helps ensure people are prepared to participate, right? Some of us are more comfortable jumping in and sharing ideas off the top of our head or problem solving. Others of us absolutely need more time to really reflect and think through issues and be prepared to participate. We all have different styles. One isn't better than the other. They're just different. And so we want to ensure that our team members are set up for success and are prepared to participate as well. Okay, so letting them know through your agenda the objective, and come prepared to make this decision. Come prepared to solve this problem with some ideas on how to solve it. Read this, for example. Whenever you can, turn your videos on. Use video conferencing, okay? Please, please, please. And I know a lot of organizations, like the big financial companies, are struggling with their bandwidth or whatever the technical terminology is, and they aren't able to use video, which is really challenging for creating team, for communicating, etc. Okay? And then finally, please, 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 ensure you recap at the end of every meeting. And by recap, I mean who's going to do what and when, by when, right? What were the decisions that were made that we all agreed to, right? What are the next steps? Okay? Okay. Just checking in on Q&A there. Okay, great. So in our online course, we could do a deep dive in meetings and you get a whole bunch of templates, all right? But you've got your vital agenda online. So this is just an overview on how to build cohesiveness. You're going to get these slides and you're going to get a recording of this webinar. So don't worry, you won't miss anything, okay? So team climate. This is the foundation of a healthy, high-performing team. The well-being of your team and your team members' ability to trust one another and demonstrate respect for one another and feel psychologically safe, and right now physically safe, okay, too, is very important, will have a direct impact on the effectiveness of your team. And climate is more difficult to build remotely because you don't have that same connection. It's more difficult to build, but it's quite possible. You just have to put more effort into this. And I work with companies like ACI Worldwide and the Federal Reserve, whose teams are dispersed, right? Across the nation or across a state. And, you know, ACI Worldwide, for example, their teams are all over the world. Their team members are all over the world and maybe never even meet face to face. And they have healthy climates, okay? So it's possible. So here's the foundation of a healthy climate, especially right now in healthcare. Care for yourself and care for others. So what does that look like? We've got about 11 minutes, so we're good. So I want to share a story with you on what this looks like. And it's actually a story about a tightrope walker, a famous tightrope walker who was known for many, many, many years ago, walking across Niagara Falls on a tightrope. And one time he did this, it was in the middle of a storm. It was raining and windy and gusting, and it was terrible conditions, but he did it. He walked across the Niagara Falls and made it to the other side. And on the other side was his #1 fan waiting for him, okay? And his #1 fan was jumping up and down and congratulating him and saying, I knew you could do it. I had every faith in the world you'd be able to cross that no problem. And then his #1 fan said, will you do it again? Only take this wheelbarrow across with you. And so the famous tightrope walker said, really? You want me to do this again? You know, it's storming, it's windy, I barely made it across the first time, and you want me to take this wheelbarrow across with me? Do you really think I can do it? Absolutely, said his #1 fan. Absolutely, I have complete faith that you'll be able to make it across. So then tightrope walker said, okay, get in. So as leaders, you are asking your team members to walk across the tightrope right now through a storm. Okay, it's scary, it's blustering, we don't know what to expect, and it's storming right now. And we are expecting our team members to follow us across the tightrope. And your team members will feel safer and will feel more confident and will be able to walk across that tightrope with you when they know you trust them and when they trust you. Okay? And it's essential that your team members right now feel that you trust them and that you care about them. Right? And you show that you trust them when you give them the autonomy to do their work, and you trust that they are able to do their work when you're not there to make sure they're doing their work, right? You trust them, show that you trust them when you engage them in decision making, when you keep them informed, when you ask them to participate in problem solving. And you show you trust them when you are vulnerable and transparent with them and honest with them, okay? And when you do these things, you build trust from them. Trust is built when we show care and concern for the well-being of others, and part of that is being vulnerable. It is so powerful to be in a meeting when we're doing a check-in and a leader says, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm having a really hard day. It is powerful. Yes, we want our leaders to guide us and motivate us and be confident. We also want our leaders to be human, right? To be human and honest and show us, you know, at times another side of them. Okay? That's how we build trust. So show you care about your team by reaching out and connecting regularly. Recognize and appreciate, encourage breaks, check in. And you show you care by practicing and modeling self-care, okay? Please find opportunities to include mindfulness practices in your check-ins, okay? Role model, asking for help, right? If you need it. Role model how you are balancing work and life, okay? By sharing how you're doing it, sharing ideas and encouraging them to do the same. There are a lot of mindfulness resources and resilience resources. Find opportunities even just to share and talk about quick videos or tools in your check-ins about how to build resilience and how to self-care. Your team members will look to you for this, right? So the more you're modeling it and incorporating resilient strategies and self-care strategies into your weekly meetings or daily check-ins, the more your team members will realize that it's important because their leader is doing it and taking the time to do it as well. And this might be a stretch for you, and I really encourage you to take that stretch, okay? To step outside of your comfort zone. So these are the 7 elements that we really touched on today. We touched on really, did a deep dive in climate. We did a deep dive in, well, not a deep dive, but we focused on climate and cohesiveness and communication. Your teams will also be able to navigate change far more effectively when they're cohesive and when they have a healthy climate. So this also helps you to strengthen change compatibility, shared leadership, and all of the others as well. So I want to share with you a number of tools that you can use right away and show you where you can find them with your team. But if you'll let me just share with you first, we are launching on Tuesday a self-paced online course that's going to give you everything you need, okay, to where we dive deep and give you a complete toolkit on building cohesion, getting clear on what success looks like, how to identify your priorities, and how to lead effective team meetings, how to maintain balance, build invincibility and vulnerability. I will be there through this whole course with you. It's self-paced. I'm there to guide you, support you, challenge you, share stories with you, share insight and advice, and an entire toolkit of action plans and templates based on our research and what we know works. And it includes 2 free coaching sessions with me, which is 2 hours of coaching that you can break up into half-hour sessions or what have you. So this is a value of $1,600, but I'm offering it to you for healthcare for $295. Okay, this will be launched on Tuesday. If you're interested, please send me an email. If you have multiple leaders who want this in your organization, the price will be much less, but $295, okay, for something that's worth $1,600. I am giving everything I have into this course for all of you, okay, and for leaders who are really need this help right now. So it's launching on Tuesday. On Thursday, the price will be going up to $475 because there is so much content in here and tools that we're just including an introductory price. But please send me an email if this is something of interest to you, okay? And then I'll be sure that we will get you the link to sign up, okay? So this will be live on Tuesday. Now, where your tools are, you can go to kn.co/hc-team-tools, okay, and get some free tools right now. So you'll get these slides on this recording, okay, somebody was asking me that. And so I'm going to share a different screen with you so you can see where the tools are at, okay. So you'll see here your ebook on the 7 elements. You have a tool on how to develop team agreements, okay? So you've got a facilitator guide here that walks you through how to develop your team agreements. You have your vital agenda. In the course, we give you a more complete vital agenda, but this one has your structure for your meeting, okay? How to structure it, your agenda. This do list is one of my favorite tools. Okay, it gives you a checklist on all the little things that make the biggest difference to your leadership effectiveness with your team. Okay, this isn't about making massive changes. This is about making little changes to the way in which you lead that have a big impact. And then I've also included a change preparation checklist. I know we're not leading massive, well, we're in the middle of leading a lot of change. So there are some pieces to this that apply to now. And this is a great checklist to have as part of when we get back to some form of normalcy, those larger initiatives that you are leading. Okay, so I encourage you, so my email is here on the bottom of the screen. I encourage you to reach out to me, ask me questions. I'm here for you. And I would love to guide you through this course and to support you and your teams. So if you have any questions about the e-course, please let me know. I'm really excited about it. And I'm just grateful you all attended. Okay, so thank you so very, very much. I wish you, I'm just going to check the Q&A here. I think we have another minute. So if anybody wants to ask a question, I will stay on for a few more minutes and answer some questions for you. But if not, I know you're very busy leaders. I so appreciate you, and I wish you all the best. Have a fantastic, fantastic weekend. Take good care. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to end it. I see most people have left. So you can always reach me at my email, and I'll follow up with all of you with the recording and slides. Okay, take good care.